What are some of the challenges you face as a documentary filmmaker when trying to capture the beauty and complexity of nature on camera?
As a filmmaker, especially in real world environments and real natural places that the weather's changing all the time, the light's changing all the time, you're often working with people, whether it's in extreme scenarios or in their own homes, trying to figure out how to best capture a story and a representation of them. But for me, honestly, I think the biggest challenge is taking the way that I feel when I'm in these places, in national parks or under night skies, and trying to communicate that so that other people feel the same thing or feel their own version of that wonder. I've come to find that I might spend my whole career trying to make something feel the way it did in person, make you understand the awe and gravity of those mountains, for example. And I might never fully get there. But what I can do is, through my films, try to either have audiences connect with a past experience and reignite kind of the awe and wonder of being on a road trip or being in nature, or even, someone's backyard or a public park. Or look ahead and get someone really excited about trying to go seek that experience for themselves. So I'd say the biggest challenge is just trying to take a great journey and make someone watching it on screen feel as immersed in it as you were, or especially feel like they're really spending time with a character that you have on screen.
Many of your films showcase the beauty of the natural world. What message do you hope to convey through your work?
What first gave me the confidence to even try to be a documentary filmmaker, and especially one making films in nature and the outdoors, was my own adventures in the national parks in college and when I was a lot younger, where I would start seeing these incredible moments in nature, whether it was like night skies and the Perseid meteor shower, lightning cracking through the Milky Way, or these incredible, sunsets and forests. And I'd always thought that experiences like that were reserved for big documentary crews, people that had like years of experience or all the right places to go or just tons of money to go and do it. And through capturing my first photos and my first footage in natural places, I started to realize that you can, if you're fortunate enough to get to a viewpoint and just spend some time or just go on a hike or get yourself into a natural place, you can see some of just this outstanding beauty and capture it and experience it in ways I personally never thought I'd be able to, just as like a pretty normal guy who was going around hiking and having as much fun as I could. And I think that if there's a message that I would love to share through my work so far, especially in national parks and nature, is to make access to nature a human right, to make it accessible, to make people feel included and comfortable in these spaces, and preserve as much land as we can for the common good and common enjoyment, which also protects ecosystems. It makes the world a healthier place. And so what I would love is to see different ways continue to be implemented where we can all get outdoors, even folks that don't have as much means to, we can preserve land, we can preserve these spaces. And also I just hope people get out of their comfort zone, and see a road trip and see an awesome person having a real impact on the land that they're on and say, I want to do that too. I want to get out there and try to live my own story in nature. I think we could all benefit a little bit from doing that.
And is there a particular exciting project in the past or that you look forward to?
Yeah, so I started making films when I was really young. I was 12, and I got really lucky that that passion turned into years of learning how to edit, learning how to make films as best I can. So my kind of career has been built so far on making documentaries in nature and around human stories in the natural world and in national parks. I just finished my first feature-length documentary. It's called Out There, a national park story, and it's all about the stories of different people connecting with national parks in the US. And it's like a big road trip film with, awe and wonder and mountains and night skies and the whole deal. And so that project and kind of my work so far, being based around both domestic and international travel and different projects, led me to apply online for a project called Dear Moon. It was an open submission, and it was a Japanese entrepreneur named Yusaku Maezawa who bought the first 8 seats ever aboard Starship, SpaceX's flagship rocket, and it'll take the first ever group of civilians around the moon into deep space to orbit the moon. And I applied on a whim. It was an open application, and out of 1 million people, I was one of 8 artists selected to join him. And so my next project that I'm so excited about, that's going to take place over a number of years, is this Dear Moon mission. You know, it's different for me than my past projects where I was traditionally and am still kind of behind the scenes, you know, behind the camera to try to show someone's story. Whereas this, I'm also a crew member. So definitely a good portion of my next potentially couple years, few years, will be being inside this mission and telling an inside perspective of what these civilian artists go through, you know, to prepare emotionally, prepare with their art, and get ready for a journey like this. And for me as an artist, I just couldn't be more excited to try and tell that story.
And finally, what advice would you give to aspiring documentary filmmakers?
So I really love the Steve Jobs quote where he talks about how you don't connect the dots in your life looking forward. You only do that looking back. And the constellation of who you are and what you're creating is something that you can only see looking back from everything you've done. And so I think if you're looking to make documentaries, don't get overwhelmed by these big films that you're seeing and how could I ever do that. It's just start small. Start with a local story. Start with a community story. Use an iPhone if you need to. Whatever means you have to get your hands on any sort of camera, begin telling stories, begin creating a portfolio, and over time that'll help you find your voice and find that special perspective that you have to give to the world. Because I think that there's plenty to be said about making a living doing this, film school versus not, those different pathways, but everyone's path is going to be so different. And I think the one thing I know is that the sooner you can start finding that voice, I think the sooner you'll start making work that both resonates with what you want to do, but you'll be showing other people kind of that perspective you have to give that only you could in your projects.